Hello, Abigail here with the Tarotscopes for Taurus season, Sagittarius, Sun, Moon, and Rising. Hello, my Sagittarians. This Taurus season is thankfully a little less hectic than our past seasons. Doesn't mean we're not doing things, doesn't mean we're not having to make plans and put things into action, but it does mean that there's less, once in a lifetime astrology or once in several years astrology happening to us all the time. So it's time to take a nice breath and to reconsider and to kind of sit with what you've learned from the first really intense months of 2025. I will also say there are a couple kind of major things coming up, but they're like something that happens once a year versus, Neptune entering into Aries. That's a pretty big one that we had in Aries season. So just know that this is a season with more space. You don't need to fill that space. Take it as it comes and give yourself time to regroup, regenerate, and refresh. In Taurus season, it's a great time to take care of yourself. The astrology is really about building and creating things that are sustainable. Especially with the Venus retrograde, our values have shifted. So, what do you value now, and how can you integrate that into your life? But it's not about these big, grandiose actions. It's about baby steps. So keep that in mind, because I know a lot of my Sagittarians like to just do sweeping things. It's time to, slow down a little bit. If you are exhausted and tired, take that as a sign to rest and do things for yourself. I do really enjoy your oracle card for this season. It is the Stang. And the little words under here are ride between the realms. It feels as though this is a really transitional period for you, which is funny because it's a fixed sign, which is actually the non-transitional period in the kind of modalities that we operate in with the zodiac. So there's mutable, cardinal, and fixed. Cardinal is the beginning of a season, fixed is the middle, and mutable is the end. So for this, you are a mutable sign. You're used to this energy and you're going to be operating it in this moment. I feel like there's a lot of spiritual opportunity for you to really explore, but also to like get back in touch with stuff spiritually that may have taken the back seat. This is the same for creative pursuits, for passion projects, anything that kind of got shoved into a corner because of the chaos we've been experiencing gets to come back out in the light of day. Just make sure that it is for its pleasure rather than for its function. I think it's important for you to reconnect with that. And the reason I say that is we have an Empress, which is funny because it's immediately followed by the Ten of Swords, but we're going to focus on this for a minute. It's time to really get back in touch with who you are and what you need. It's important to remember why you started the journeys you've been on. This card is very much a journeying card. Remember the why. Remember what you entered into something for in the first place. I think a lot of times, like money and survival, which are also very Taurus themes when you're in places where I don't enjoy being, is about money and survival. But I think it's time to take it back even further to what is the core, not the kind of fringe, but the core of Taurus, which is sustainability and growth and care and tenderness. And can it be pretty aggressive, like, like an earthquake or something like that? Yeah, but I think for someone who's got a lot of Jupiter activity, it's important to remember why you expanded in the first place. It wasn't just to get money. It wasn't just to be the best at everything. And maybe you think it is, but maybe go a little deeper. And, I could be wrong. Maybe a few of you are like, no, I'm only here for cash. But then I would wonder why you're listening to someone like me. But why did you do it in the first place? And maybe you don't need to give up right now because you're exhausted, but maybe you need to get back to the source of your energy and really tend to the source of the spring. A lot of times we focus on, if we take the metaphor of like a spring head, which is where the water comes from, source, the fountain, whatever, and we think about the basin. Oftentimes we spend a lot of time focusing and caring for and tending to the basin that holds everything, that we forget to kind of make sure that all the twigs and leaves are cleared away up ahead, that anything that's blocking further upstream, we're like, why aren't things working? And the reason it's not is because we've kind of forgotten where this all came from and what really needs to be protected. Obviously we should care for the stuff that we have, but like, why did we want to get this stuff in the first place, and why is that important for us? And very Empress. And I think it really does tie into this Ten of Swords, because you have lost sight of the why, and you have lost sight of your dreams. Not that you're not pursuing them, but that you're have forgotten why you pursued them in the first place. And I think you're letting a lot of stuff that doesn't actually matter weigh you down and really mess with your confidence and your trust and your faith in who you are and all of those beautiful natural gifts that I know every Sagittarius heavy person has. Um, so, what do I think is the solution to this? It's downtime. It's having the space to remember who you are, to remember why you love the things you love, to remember why you love yourself and why you care about certain parts of who you are. There's the Sun Uranus conjunction, which is one of the bigger ones of Taurus season. I think that's a moment. To me, Uranus is also intervention sometimes. It's coming in and um, finding a solution that maybe no one has ever considered before. So, take that into account that that's coming up. The new moon in Taurus is about to be a bit of an earth shaker, but that full moon in Scorpio conjunct Uranus is also in there, which I think tied to that Uranus conjunction, there might be something there for you to remember who you are, to come back to yourself and your desires and what functions best for you specifically, not for the career you're in, not for your family, not for your partner even, but what works for you and how can you build a life around that rather than kind of building up castles and towers around things that aren't essential to you, which can get really exhausting for a for a Jupiter person. Then we have the moon, which, like I said, I do think it has a lot to say about what's happening. If you're struggling with knowing how to structure your life this month, maybe follow the moon cycles. Maybe listen to, you know, between the new and the full moon, it's a building moment. Between the full and the new moon, it's a slowing down. So maybe you let yourself build up between the full and the new moon. And then as we head towards Gemini season, you give yourself a bit of a break. Let things kind of pass through you, release old energy, maybe do some spells, some cord cuttings with this Scorpio full moon to really give yourself the space to remember the reason that you are such a fighter, the reason that you love what you do, the reason that you're doing all of these wonderful things. And then, especially when we're dealing with a 10, maybe cull back some of the stuff that you're doing. Start focusing on essentials. Taurus is really beautiful because it can be both really flamboyant and out there, but it also does really good at paring things down. It reminds me of how in this spring you get all of these beautiful blossoms, tons of potential for fruit on a fruit tree. However, when it comes time for the fruit to ripen, some of the fruit will naturally fall away. Um, and then if the tree is tended for by human hands, it is wise to take off at least half of the fruit so that the fruit that remains really grows. And I feel like in this Taurus season, there's an opportunity for this really abundant, rich bloom. But as a reminder, in order for things to come to fruition, you do have to pare back and you do have to make things more concise. And so start doing that now. Start picking the stuff that really matters to you and the people that it really matters for you to invest in. And they don't have to be the stereotypical people. If your family is not a place where you can grow, maybe you pare that back and focus more on your friends. If you're not finding the nurture that you need in a partnership, maybe it's time to pare back on how much energy you put in that partnership until you can find a way to get your needs met, and vice versa. That can go for your partner as well. We have a beautiful Daughter of Cups, which I think is partially what I've been talking about as we were talking about paring down and nurturing and like finding your why. Like, go fill your cup. Do something only for you. Do something that is low output, high input, brings you joy, probably silly goofy. Really just allow yourself to be refreshed and don't just do it once. Make a habit of it this Taurus season. Do it once a week for the duration. I challenge you. For the duration of Taurus season, do something that is purely for you and your pleasure and your enjoyment. We do have a Five of Cups. I do think there is some grief around this. I think you're going to realize if you followed my advice. And also, even if you don't, the universe has a way of doing these things itself. Anyways, sorry, I got distracted. Back to where I was. We have the Five of Cups. I do think there's going to be some grief in this process. I think also in the process of asking your why, you might find that you've gone off track a little bit and you have to kind of regroup. I think this is a good thing. I also think it's a result of the Venus retrograde. So allow yourself to grieve. I also feel like you're going to meet this reading at some level of progress. Some of you are going to be like, wow, I never thought of this before. Some of you are going to be like, oh, I'm in the middle of this. And some of you are going to be like, this was my Venus retrograde journey. And you can continue that journey of releasing and letting go and kind of coming back to the essentials. And last but not least, this card was calling to me. We have the world. A lot of really major things are wrapping up for you. A lot of um, cycles are finding their natural end. It takes a lot of energy for that to happen. So, do less and let the universe do more. Anyways, my loves, that is my reading for you. I will see you in a different space and time. Please comment if you have any questions or any inputs about your experiences in any of the seasons that I cover. And I'll see you all in a different space and time.